Ruth, we're going to talk about the difference between training for hypertrophy versus training for strength. Hey everybody, it's BJ.
I'm Ruth.
And we're back talking all things health and fitness. And today, Ruth, we're going to talk about the difference between training for hypertrophy versus training for strength. Okay? And if you don't know what hypertrophy is.
It's a big word.
Yeah, it's just actually.
You keep saying it. I'm defined.
I was thinking about it. You know, it's like the way to get a whole bunch of trophies. Hypertrophy.
Oh, I like that. Hypertrophies.
Anyway, we're going to get into that today.
Now that BJ's taught me how to speak,
right?
We're going to move on.
If you're watching for the first time, hey, take a sec and hit that subscribe button and give us a like for the video. Helps us out, and make sure that you don't miss anything because we are putting out a pile of content. And so there'll be lots of information for you. We've got some great inspirational pieces that we've been doing, and we got a few more coming up as well. So let's get right into it. So aside from my version of hypertrophy.
Say it 3 times fast.
Hypertrophy. Remember, for those of you who don't remember, I gave Ruth once my definition of protein, which was a team that's lost its amateur status.
Right. I didn't laugh.
Which I got to give credit to Calvin and Hobbes for that, because that's where that one came from. But so let's just understand what we're talking about. Hypertrophy is really talking about growing muscle.
Right.
Okay, versus strength training. And you might say, isn't that the same thing?
No.
And it's not, no. Right? Because you can train and get strong, and by extension, you'll probably grow some muscle, but not necessarily optimally grow muscle.
Right.
Right? But you'll get strong. Right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I guess the first place for us to start on that is progressive overload. Okay, and I want to qualify all the things that we're going to talk about today also is, as we age in our 40s, 50s, and 60s, it's super important to be adding muscle and maintaining your strength. And by extension, you're maintaining your bone density and, taking care of your ligaments and all of these things. And we've talked about this a lot about avoiding injuries. So as we start to increase weight and things like that, I think we need to preface all of this by saying, if you need to see a doctor to make sure you're on a good starting point, do that first. And secondly, would be making sure that you're always maintaining good form, right? And
keep your body safe,
right?
Keep yourself safe.
Good form, maintain proper technique, maintain proper tempo. Remember, it's weightlifting, it's not weight throwing, right?
Swinging momentum
right?
To get it up there doesn't work, doesn't count.
Yeah.
Use the muscles to work.
So you want the muscles to do the work. Okay, so let's start with the foundation of all of this is a principle we call progressive overload. And a lot of you probably know what this is, but it simply means this, is that by increasing it's trauma, but by increasing the stress to the muscles and to our bodies, our bodies adapt by adding muscle and getting stronger, and that's what progressive overload is all about. The thing about progressive overload that we have to watch for is our body is always trying to get to a place of a homeostatic state, so where it doesn't have to change anymore, right?
Right.
So the challenge we all have when it comes to progressive overload, and the reason it's progressive, is it has to keep changing.
Yep.
Right? If you're doing the same workout now that you were doing a year ago, chances are your body is no longer responding to that workout. Right? It's just mailing it in and just keeping everything where it is. But we want to talk about making progress on an ongoing basis. Right? So there's a couple of ways that we can do that. Obviously, you can increase the weight. Right? You can increase the reps.
Increase the reps.
Or the sets, for that matter.
Yep.
Or you could increase, or not necessarily increase, but you can add additional training techniques. Drop sets. Forced reps. All these different things. But
decrease the time in between. In between rep or sets.
Yeah. And those are certainly more advanced things to do. If you're just starting out, just start, but don't try to do everything.
No.
You know, we were crazy in the day when we started, because we started and did everything.
And what I've learned, with age comes wisdom.
Yeah.
Less is more.
Yeah. Right. And, you know, and that's the idea, is we don't want to go, like, my days of being a gym rat are done. I used to go, and I'd like hanging out at the gym after I trained. I like getting there early and hanging out with everybody, because
spending a couple hours there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
those days are long gone.
Yeah.
Right. I have a daughter. I have a business. I have other things, and I have a life.
Yeah, I was going to say you have a life.
So, okay, let's talk about then the different adaptations that your body makes, either for strength or hypertrophy. And you understand that there's going to be some overlap, okay? You're going to increase the muscle size through structural change, but the muscles are going to get stronger. Are they going to get maybe like powerlifter strong necessarily? Not from that training,
no,
right?
No.
You have to train specifically and go after strengthening the muscles. So bigger muscles don't necessarily translate into more weight.
No.
Right? But it may. I mean, you're going to get stronger. How's that? Right? There's a part of it you're going to get stronger. But if we're talking about strength training, the goal of strength training is just that, to lift as much weight as you can. Right? And so that's really where we start talking about big compound movements, powerlifting movements. So a lot of squats, deadlift,
Lunges.
hello,
Squats.
bench.
Hello.
Yeah, I was gone for a while, but
Yeah,
I'm back now. Bench and inclines and all of those
memory.
things. So the difference is we measure hypertrophy by looking in the mirror, by stepping on the scale, and by tape measure.
Yeah.
We measure strength by just that. Are you stronger than you were? Is your one rep going up? Is your ability to do whatever you were doing getting better every time?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the key differences in training for strength versus hypertrophy. Okay. Because you may say at this age, well, I don't really want to get super strong, but I need to get a little bit stronger, or I want to add some more muscle. I still want to look good as I age. Well, we all should, right? So here's the thing: when we talk about hypertrophy and training for hypertrophy, there's exercise selection. Mm-hmm. There's not a set you must do these exercises when we're talking about this, right? Whether if we're doing chest and you're doing flies maybe, or maybe you're focused more on dips, or you're doing incline bench press or pec deck or something like that. You can do all of those with the right rep ranges, and we'll get to the rep ranges in a minute. But you can do all of those with the right rep ranges. Say that fast three times.
Fast.
Yeah. And you're going to see improvement.
Yeah.
Okay. If we're specifically trying to get stronger, so that usually is specific targeted lifts. So if you're trying to be a power lifter, bench press, squats, deadlift.
Yeah.
And depends if you're competing in something else. But those are kind of the big three, right?
Yeah.
So your training is going to be geared towards getting stronger in bench press, squats, and deadlift. Your form is going to be a little bit different also, because when you do a bench press, for example, the power lifter bench press has more of a back arch than the bodybuilding deadlift, right?
Yeah.
And the powerlifting squat typically is deeper.
Is deeper, and they where the bar sits is different.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit functionally different, but the point is you've got more variety of exercises you're going to do for the hypertrophy side versus the strength training for specific. It's geared generally towards specific exercises.
Yeah.
If you have a goal, and maybe you say, hey, I want to be able to bench press 200 pounds or 100 pounds, and that's wonderful. But if you're not trying to specifically, that's your only goal, then you're going to build in some other things around that, in that chest workout around that, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. Rep ranges. So for hypertrophy, The most effective rep ranges, it's pretty broad actually. It's the depending on the body part, depending on the exercise, all of these things, but somewhere between 6 to 25 reps.
Yeah.
And getting into probably in that 2 to 3 reps in reserve at that point.
Yeah.
We did a whole episode on reps in reserve versus training to failure that breaks that down. But really, you want to get to somewhere in that 2 to 3 range. And the funny thing is, I know anytime that I've picked a weight that's too light, so now I know by the time I get to 2 to 3 reps, I'm going to be not just exhausted, my muscles are going to be like white hot on fire because I'm going to have to do 25 reps to get there. It's I mean, it's good, I guess, in a sense, but I'm always like, oh no, I'm committed.
Chose badly.
I'm committed. Here we go. So, okay. So that's the 6 to 25 for hypertrophy. So now we're talking about strength training. It's going to be more focused on heavy lifting. Heavy loads, right? So, and we're talking about somewhere in the 1 to 5 rep range. Maybe you go up to 6 reps at some point. Maybe you go as high as 8. I don't think that's very common when you're talking about the
6 typically is a max.
Yeah.
If you can make it to 6, it's time to take the weight up.
Yeah. So that's one of the big differences, obviously, when we're doing that. Okay. What else? Now let's talk about volume. The amount of training for hypertrophy versus the amount of training for strength. Okay. So for hypertrophy, we know that higher weekly volume promotes growth, right? So whether it's 18 sets per body part, whether it's in some exercises I've gone as high as 20 or 24 reps per body part in a week. And that really, and you can break that up, check in. You can figure out what works for you, for your body parts and your body type for that, because it's a little bit different for different people as well. But generally speaking, it's going to be more volume for hypertrophy. Okay? So strength training is the opposite. It's lower volume with higher intensity. Right. So you are going to, you're going to be dialed in, and you're in there like, I got to lift this thing, and it's going to require a whole lot out of me to get these five reps done. If I don't do them right, I'm going to get squished.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Number 4 is rest. So when it comes to hypertrophy, you get a little less rest between sets. So like if it's 1 to 3 minutes between sets, that's pretty normal. On the flip side of it, for strength training, you get more rest because the goal is to get maximum heavy lifting.
That's right.
Right.
So you could take a longer rest in between.
So 3 to 6 minutes is probably a good number for that. That gives us the basis for you to make some decisions about training.
Which one? Yeah. One versus the other.
Yeah, and hey, did you ever do one or the other, or were you just always the kind of the bodybuilding style?
I did always the bodybuilding style. Once in a while, I would train with friends who were power lifters, and it was just to change up my own thing. So I'd go into that, and it was always fun to go, what's the 1 rep max?
Yeah.
To get to know what that number was, and that was when I did my biggest squat, which was 295, when I weighed 130 pounds. And
that's a pretty good squat.
I did 3 reps on that one.
Wow. That's a good squat.
And again, it was just changing it up, but that wasn't typically how I would train.
Right. Yeah, I know, over the years when we started, without knowing it, we evolved into what at that time was known as power bodybuilding. Yeah. So where we would at least once every week, 2 weeks, we would go for a 1 rep max in the bodybuilding training. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So we'd be, and I don't recommend doing this, especially for those of you that are watching it in your 40s and 50s and 60s.
I don't do this anymore.
Yeah. But what we would do is, so for example, for bench press, we do 5 sets, and we'd get the reps in leading up to, and then we'd go for the max at the end.
The 1 rep max.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
And we would typically do it, I would do it more as a fun thing. So I'd train all year as a bodybuilder. And then it was like the week of New Year's, we would go in and do the 1 rep max. And it would be bench, and it would be squats, and it would be deads. And just kind of play around and just see, did I get stronger?
Yeah. So, take it for what fits for you and what makes sense for you. But just understand there's there's going to be some overlap for sure. But if you're looking for hypertrophy, growing muscle specifically, your training methodology needs to be a little bit different than if you're training strictly for strength. So. So thanks for joining us today. If you haven't, hit that subscribe button, give us a like for the video, and you know what? We'll keep watching because we're putting out tons of content. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. See ya.
See ya.